How can you leave a legacy of cultural unity? I'm Penny Lane, and In the Driver's Seat starts now. Welcome to In the Driver's Seat, brought to you by the Perfect Cosmetics Company, where each episode we take you on a journey into the lives of industry trailblazers and entrepreneurs who've carved their own unique paths to success. In this episode, we meet Jeremy Nikora. Jeremy's work in cultural resilience within the Māori and First Nation communities is truly inspiring. From founding the Cultural Collective to mentoring and advocacy for cultural empowerment, he's made a significant impact. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, you grew up in New Zealand during the civil rights and land rights movement. Tell me how that affected your cultural identity.
Yeah, it really defined, I guess, what drives me today. My parents and that generation were very much pioneers in that civil rights movement back in the 1970s and 1980s to now, some of the work that they did and others of that generation. We've got a lot of younger people that are fluent, that are really solid in their identity, and that was my upbringing. So I was part of that
strong. Yeah, that's good that you had those people around you.
Yeah.
It must have been soul destroying. How was it for your parents?
Well, they were a very resilient generation.
Yeah.
The generation,
the Māori are actually, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I think back in the when they were born, 1940s, 1930s, the world had gone through a world war, and was about to go into a second one. So there was a lot of dynamic stuff happening within society itself, but also within the indigenous communities around the world.
Yes.
So by the time that they had gotten into the 1960s and the 1970s, there was a real drive to then start making some changes, having our land returned, and all those cultural identity foundational poles that we like to. That we adhere to, or that are part of our DNA.
Yes.
They were part of that movement actually of bringing all those things back to us. So. Yeah,
that's fantastic, because I heard that they didn't want people to speak Māori in New Zealand at that time. What was that like?
Yeah. There were a couple of really interesting things happening. So our parents' generations, their parents, encouraged them not to speak Māori.
Yeah.
Because two reasons, they could see that the world was changing. It was very much a white person's colonial world.
Yeah.
And our grandparents, they were disciplined if they spoke Māori. So
were they?
They didn't want that passed on to their children. So their children, my parents, etc., they were encouraged to speak English and learn English. Also to be able to then, just be able to live in an English world,
try
as
to
opposed
make
to being
safe,
indigenous.
I suppose.
Yeah. So they, by the time that we came around, they weren't. They might speak it between themselves, but they wouldn't speak that to us. So our generation in the 1970s, 1980s that were born around that time, we were in these two different worlds. Our parents would speak it to each other, but then they wouldn't share that to us.
Yeah.
And then we were, we were trying to define who we are, because at the same time, there was all these civil movements that were happening, around bringing back our indigeneity. So we're like, what do you mean, indigeneity? What do you mean what it is to be Māori? We never learnt about our own origin stories and things like that. Our history was all about, an English history.
What a shame.
So it really started the flow-on effect of rekindling our language, and that's been the basis of what the work we do now.
Yeah, and how old was you when you started to get into that and help encourage other Māoris and First Nations people to learn their roots?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it's probably been in the last maybe 15 years.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
And it coincided with me moving to Australia.
Yeah.
So after, through the 1970s and the 1980s, I then, left home, and that lack of identity, or that really conflicted sense of identity, led me through, I did a lot of traveling around the world.
Yeah.
not necessarily trying to find who I was, but just existing in a space that I didn't really know any different.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I actually moved back to Melbourne and I met a lot of our younger generation, my nieces and nephews, who I'd never really sort of had much to do with.
Yeah.
And I could actually see that there was a real disconnection for a lot of them as well.
Yeah.
That then spurred me to then, I really wanted to help them. But to help them, I had to really invest in myself first. So
and learn.
that started my journey. 2008 would have been.
And tell us about the collective that you've set up.
Yeah, so Kaiarahi Collective, for years I've been involved in groups that are performing arts, traditional performing arts, so kapahaka groups, Te Hononga o Ngā
I love
Iwi.
watching kapahaka, it's so good.
Yeah, and then we also teach a traditional Māori weaponry, a fighting art form that was handed down from the ancient days, and has been a part of the rekindling of our identity. So we teach that here, myself and some of our other tutors, who we've shared a similar journey. And then that's been our community-based initiatives where young people could come, or anyone really could come and connect. The Kaiarahi Collective has probably been a little bit more my own journey, through, I guess, understanding the challenges that I had, trying to identify as a Māori male, as a male, which it can be hard enough as it is, and then seeing a lot of the disconnection or a lot of the challenges that a lot of our men over the however long, the last sort of 10 years, and especially coming through COVID, there was a desire in me to actually build something where I could actually do some holistic work, culturally embedded holistic work with our men, to help them understand some of the balance and some of the challenges that they have. And that's not to say, our women don't or others don't, but specifically...
Men and women, we speak totally different languages,
absolutely,
which is a good thing.
And a lot of men don't actually have the language to express emotionally how they are, and what's challenging them. So that's been, Kaiarahi was actually
I would
a part
imagine
of
you've
that.
saved a lot of lives doing that.
Well, I don't know about saving lives. I know that we've definitely impacted many, and in the end, that's then flowed out to the broader community about how we're advocating and just trying to, because if we can get a lot of our men understanding emotionally how they react, some of their triggers, and how important they are within this family sphere. That's been the driver to then, because you can see the ripples, how that could then affect a whole family and then a whole community. So Kaiarahi was originally designed for that, but also I'm a big believer in not just physical challenges, fitness and all that health and well-being things through physical activity, but also connecting our well-being to our environment, which again is very much overlaid by a real strong Indigenous perspective of how important our environment is.
It really is. That my son's Māori, and we know who his mountain is, where his mountain is, and the canoe. Everything that I can find out for him, I've found out he's part of Ngāpuhi.
Awesome.
And there is, what I did find is there wasn't as much out there as I wanted to find. There's a brilliant Matariki festival in Melbourne. I think it's been going for 3 years, which is absolutely fantastic. But what else is out there for people wanting to find their cultural identity if they're outside of New Zealand? Yeah,
look, in terms of Melbourne specifically, we a number of years ago, probably when I first moved down here, there were groups individually that were doing things. So there was either performing arts, kapahaka. We were doing it on the east side, but over the last, I guess, 10 to 15 years, other groups have been created, and then what we've then done is been able to network and work a lot closer together, because Melbourne's quite a spread out city. So if you're on the west side, then coming to what we do on the east side can be quite logistically challenging. So now, and what you're saying, Matariki has been such a beautiful kaupapa initiative. Again, another traditional knowledge-based system that's come back and is actually a relevant part of our society today. So Matariki, but there are also language. There's Māori language classes being run. There's traditional weaving. There are a number of different activities now. So Whereas, before it might have been 2 or 3 groups and you had to be lucky enough to kind of be close geographically to one or the other. Whereas now, you can either do things online or, there's regular gatherings where you can come. Like we did there was an event where you had multiple things going on. So there was a tāmoko, a tattooing, a traditional tattooing event on, and at the same time we had our Maurako, which is our traditional fighting art form, at the same time. So we were at a community centre where the community could actually come in, and then there was some weaving going on, so they could then go, oh whoa, there's actually so many different things, because not everyone's comfortable being on the stage and performing. Some others might not be comfortable with the physical stuff, but some might actually be really good at either weaving or the other types of art
tapestry. I loved getting involved with the tapestry and filing the wood and making what those things called that you spin around and make a whistling sound. That was so much fun doing that. And you've got a really interesting career now, and I know that you're making a world of difference. Tell us how that job came about and what you're doing.
Yeah, again, just through a lot of the collaborative stuff that we've done through our performing arts. Our community, we've got a very large community of Māori who live here in Australia. Melbourne. One of the big defining things, or the big drivers for me, has been to how do we honour our First Nations communities. Because we are Māori people and a lot of Indigenous people are very connected to the land and the environment, and a lot of our processes are connected to that as well. So as we were developing our own cultural processes, we then had to understand what's our responsibility for those who's had their land taken and still struggling to find where their language is, find where there's a lot of First Nations people that still don't know where they come from, because through the record keeping or the removal of families or the displacement of land, generationally there's been 2 or 3 or 4 generations where people can't go back past their grandparents or their parents even. So that's been a really big passion of mine, is making sure that our community is doing what we can, because we are so vibrant, we are so fortunate to have our language. How do we then help? What part do we play in helping our First Nations communities here?
Amazing. I can't believe we're out of time already. I've got so many questions I wanted to ask you. I love New Zealand music and the fried bread, and there's so many other fun things I wanted to speak to you about as well. Everything. Thank you so much for coming on, Jeremy. You really are doing great things. And how can people find out more about the services that you offer and the things that you do? Look,
you can check us out. We're on Facebook. Te Hononga o Ngaiwi is our kapahaka group. Te Arohonunga is our traditional fighting art group. So we're all over Facebook in Melbourne. So
amazing. We'll definitely see you there. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Tika, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Tika. We'll have more in just a few minutes.